From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Here.
Now that my microphone's on, Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, March 29, 2022, 2 p.m. meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. We will hear from our County Council report on any actions taken in closed session. But before I turn to her, I have something to report. Today in closed session regarding item number 55 on this morning's agenda, I'm pleased to report by a unanimous 5-0 vote, the Board of Supervisors appointed Lito Murillo as the next Director of Human Services effective April 9th, 2022. Mr. Murillo has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Public Administration from CSU Bakersfield and has served as the Director of Aging and Adult Services since 2011. Prior to serving as Director of Aging and Adult Services, Mr. Murillo worked for the Department of Human Services for over 6 years. Mr. Murillo has shown throughout his career he is dedicated to serving our community and is focused on growing organizations to better serve our residents. The board is grateful for the leadership and integrity Mr. Murillo has demonstrated over the last 11 years at Aging and Adult Services, and we look forward to his continued success as the Director of Human Services. The board congratulates Mr. Murillo on his accomplishment and would like to give him an opportunity to say a few words. Lito, come on up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just wanted to be brief in my comments, but I wanted to thank this board for this wonderful opportunity. I think Human Services is an amazing department with exceptional staff, and I'm looking forward to working with all of them. As I shared with you, I have deep roots with Human Services, having started my county career there in 1994. Obviously going as far back as my father being a social worker at Human Services. So I'm proud to be part of that team again, and I'm looking forward to working with every single one of them. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. I also want to introduce my wife in the back. She'll kill me for doing this, but I didn't think she'd make it, but she did. But my wife, Emily, and my kids for her unwavering support in this county career of mine. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll begin by considering the consent agenda. Excuse me. I need to turn to County Council for a report on any other actions taken in closed session. Ms. Rizon?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. In addition to item number 55, you also met on items 56 and 57 in closed session, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you. Okay, now we will consider the consent agenda. So if you would like to follow along with our agendas, they are available on the 2 tables near the doors. All items listed with a CA or a C above the item are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. The CA represents the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. The C represents the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority and the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda, and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So at this time, I will read the consent agenda items for the Board of Supervisors agenda. So starting on page 2, item 5 is on consent. On page 4, items 6 through 11 are all on consent. Page 5, items 12 through 15 are on consent. Page 6, items 16 through 17 are all on, 16 through 19 are all on consent. On page 7, items 20 through 23 are on consent. Page 8, items 24 through 27 are on consent. On page 9, items 28 through 33 are on consent. And page 10, items 34 through 41 are all on consent. Page 11, items 42 through 49 are all on consent. And page 12, we have items 50 through 56 listed as on consent. However, we're going to pull 51 and 52 off of consent. So the remaining items on consent will be 50, as well as 53 through 56. Page 13, items 57 through 63 are on consent. And finally, on page 14, we have items 64 through 68 on consent. So I'll ask if there's any members of the audience that would like to discuss, make any comments on any items on the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Eddie Lane. Is this the time for me to talk about an item, or should I wait for later?
Is it an item that's on the consent agenda?
Correct.
This is the time. Thank you.
Okay. Let me give you these are copies. Thank you. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Item 49. My name is Eddie Lane. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm speaking today about item 49 on the consent agenda. Even with a wonderful rain, water conservation is always important, but especially in a drought. Common sense discussions, plans, agreements, which include the use of Kern River water, need to include water metering. This is what was planned since 2016, when an agreement was reached between the County of Kern and the City of Bakersfield regarding the use of Kern River water by Kern County. This issue was highlighted in a February 20, 2022 Our Review editorial in the Bakersfield Californian titled, "Even in the Midst of a Drought, Kern County Must Save Water." I'm holding up that editorial. However, this proposed agreement between the County of Kern and the Kern River Golf Course does not include water metering, which was in previous agreements when Parks was a separate department. Nor does this item, as identified, provide the public with an understanding that the current agreement with the golf course does not end until June 30, 2023. Leaving out this June 30, 2023 date is concerning, as the public might be led to believe that the current agreement is ending relatively soon. Also, this proposed extension from June 30, 2023 to June 30, 2028 is extremely unusual, and it is being proposed well over a year before the end of the current contract and without justification. Given Supervisor Maggart's decision to retire at the end of this year, this proposed agreement would not give a new supervisor a chance to consider possible contract revisions prior to this agreement being formalized. As such, without any compelling reason given to extend this agreement at this time, this is a request that this agreement be deferred until the next District 3 supervisor has a chance to thoroughly review any proposed agreement and discuss it with all interested parties. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Eddie Lane with the Sierra Club.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Jeff Martin, American Refuse. Items 15 through 29 on consent agenda. There was a removal of a recycling surcharge that we weren't aware of until Thursday, and we'd like some time to get back with staff and work on this and come to agreement and bring it back to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
I believe it's 12 through 29. What affects me is 13, 22, and 28. Thank you.
Okay, originally I heard 15 through 29, but it's 13 through 29? Okay.
No.
Or 12 through 29. All right.
Yes.
Right, not 11, right? Okay. Very good. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board. Supervisor Couch.
Yeah, I'd like to ask for separate consideration of 12 through 29. It's a general discussion, though. I think we can talk about the issue that affects every single one of them, which Mr. Martin just raised.
Okay, so do you want to pull those? Okay, so we'll pull 15 through 29 off consent.
12
I'm sorry,
29.
there I go again. 12 through 29. Thank you, Supervisor Maggard. Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain then a motion to approve the consent agenda with 12 through 29 being pulled off of consent, and to adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have your motion in a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Okay. We are now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority, and we'll consider the consent agenda, which includes item C1. And so I will ask if there's any members of the audience that would like to make a comment on consent agenda item C1. Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'll return to the board and request a motion to approve the consent agenda and to adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District.
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. We are now sitting as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District, and we'll consider the consent agenda, which includes item C2. Are there any members of the audience that would like to make a comment on item C2? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda item C2 and to adjourn as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District and reconvene as the Kern County Board of Supervisors.
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll get to items 12 through 29 in a moment, but first we're going to go in order, and next would be public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. So I'll ask if there's any members of the public that would like to make a comment on an item not on our agenda. We ask that you state your name and please adhere to our 2-minute time limit. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, Board of Supervisors. My name is Tom Pavich, P-A-V-I-C-H. I am the Kern County Coordinator for the Election Integrity Project. I come here today as a follow-up on the March 11 letter that I sent to Mary Bedard, Kern County Registrar of Voters, of which you all received a copy. In that letter, I had requested that the records of the recall election be preserved beyond the election code requirement of 6 months, and she kindly agreed to extend that to the 22-month period, which is the same for federal elections. I also requested that for the November 2020 election that there be an explanation for the vote count between the total number of ballots counted by the Secretary of State here for Kern County and the total number of voters that voted in the county. There is a variance of over 12,000 votes, which represents about 4% of the total votes cast. 4% can be the difference in an election, as we all know. As of this date, I have not received a response to that request. I would like to bring to your attention some other troubling Kern stats. In this November 2020 election, undeliverable ballots, these are ballots that are mailed out by the Elections Department, returned by the post office as undeliverable. We had 16,591. That's 4% of the Kern ballots. The average for California is 2%. We are double the statewide average. Also, ballots in which the status is unknown, meaning not voted or not returned. We had 179,000 ballots. That's a 41% rate. Statewide average was 23%. So again, almost double the statewide average. The Election Integrity Project has no interest in overturning any elections. All we seek is an explanation, and all we seek is transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pavich. Do we have any comments from any members of the board on this, Supervisor Couch?
Do you have that in writing that you could submit to us?
I can, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor. I was going to ask her the same thing, and we'll endeavor to get responses to those questions for you.
Thank you. You have copies of the original letter, the March 11th letter, but I will provide you with the information that I just presented in writing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, could you submit it to the clerk, please? That way it will be distributed to all 5 members of the board.
I can't. I don't have it available today. Can I provide it at a later date?
Absolutely. You can email it.
Will do.
Sure. That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other public comments, please?
While he's coming to the chair, can I chime in on that same issue?
Yes.
Can we accompany that correspondence that we're going to receive from Mr. Pavich with a request that we do receive a formal response from the Registrar of Voters and the county clerk?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dennis McLean again. Good afternoon, Chairman, board members, and staff. I came here this afternoon just to watch the meeting, but on my way from Northwest Bakersfield, coming down Golden State Avenue, past F Street, and then Father Garza Circle, I'm amazed at the amount of homeless people that are still there. I am puzzled that this board and city council cannot rid this, pardon me? Oh, sorry. I'll start over. I'm amazed at the amount of homeless people. I am puzzled that the board and city council cannot rid this repulsive sight. With all the money and regulations this town has thrown at the problem, it seems it has gotten worse. As a tax-paying citizen, I am extremely disappointed in your effort to address this issue. And I'm astonished the county health department hasn't declared an epidemic with all the trash and germs floating around this town. But then again, there's no pandemic money available for this problem, so it continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. I don't know if we might be able to offer some response right now on what it was that he has just expressed. I know there's jurisdictional issues. Some of those parts that you came through may have been county areas, some parts may have been city areas. But Mr. Alsop, do you wish to take a shot at a response, or do you think that we could formulate a response and get to Mr. McLean within the next week or so?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can certainly work on that and get something to Mr. McLean.
Okay.
If you'd like.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments under public presentations? Okay, I don't see any. Then we're going to move on to board member announcements or reports. Do we have any announcements or reports from any of the board? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to our next item on the agenda, which was pulled off consent, and that would be item 12, but we pulled 12 through 29, and these are all on the same subject. And so at this point, I'm going to ask our Public Works Director, Craig Pope, to address these items, and we will go from there. Good afternoon, Mr. Pope. Proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The items that have been withdrawn, or not withdrawn from that, but pulled for discussion, are requests to set a hearing date for rate increases through the 218 process. We have to get on an agenda and notify the public of what we intend to do, and that's our time crunch right now, is we are at the edge of time to make changes. But here's the concern that's being voiced by our hauler organization, is that we didn't give them proper notice. The program that was set up to have a recycling surcharge was set up as a 3-year program. It was at a time when there was much outcry throughout the public. There's no market for the recycles. Why are we recycling? There's no market. The haulers who collect the recycles and are charged with processing them in some manner are going, there is no market. And we agreed. I mean, it was out in the public everywhere. It was in the news everywhere. That was 3 years ago. We paid them a surcharge that was helped them through that time. We're now at a point 3 years later where, best we could tell, if I could have the overhead on. We went out and researched to see if we could make a determination of whether we were still in the same boat. And SWANA, the Solid Waste Association of North America, basically says it's recovered. And if you get into the details of the report, you'll see that it really truly has. There have been quite a market recovery for the material that they pull out. So with that, we really have no justification to put a surcharge on it. Anything we did at that point, if it's paying for its way, then we would be the ones that are getting into the public for money that there's no basis. And that's our challenge on the 218. That's why we have this 218 process, that people can come forward and ask why we did this. We don't have a reason. We are now up against the wall of getting this duplicated. Today's our day to make changes. We need to get it to the printer so that we can get the documents out to the public so they can take a look at it. We need to set the hearing date so we can move ahead with this process. This is something that we talked briefly with to the haulers back in July. That was a long time ago, granted. And it was part of our new agreement that we're working on with them, that there wouldn't be a recycling surcharge anymore. It'd be all wrapped up. The cost of doing business is covered under the new agreement. That's where we're at. I honestly, and this was my misjudgment, I thought we'd be done with that within 3-4 months. It's now 6-8 months, and we're still not there. We're getting close, I think, but we're not there yet. So that probably led to the confusion. It did. And we're at a point now where I think we need to keep moving ahead and work towards getting that new agreement through and try and get it buttoned up clean as we can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pope. I will return the board for any questions, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up and see if there's any comments from any members of the audience on these items.
Good afternoon, Jeff Martin, American Refuse. On the sheet that Mr. Pope has brought up, those are dollars per ton, and that's based on if you were a processor and you're selling. That never reflects on what we're paying to take it to a processor, which is third party. We don't process, I don't process. We shut down our processing plant in 2017 when the prices took a dive. This showing from 2020 to 2021, I think it would be more accurate if it maybe was 2016 when the markets at that time were much more significant than this. But for us as haulers, we were never really given the opportunity to go, I mean, there was a big shift in it. We did have a surcharge, but for us delivering it to the processors, we haven't seen a decrease in price. You know, we're still seeing between $50 and $70 a ton that we're having to incur to have the material properly recycled. A lot of other things are going up in cost. You know, those prices, they do reflect the raw commodity cost. But when the processing, there's a lot of things that processors are having to do through 1383. They're having to slow down their belts so they can get recover the materials. And then there's a lot of materials that are still not recyclable. You know, we hear between 30 and 40% of the material that we're delivering, it's not recyclable. It's still going to the landfill. And once again, this year, landfill costs are going up. And this is all a reflection of our costs that we're going to incur. I've been at pretty much all the negotiating meetings, and I don't recall a July meeting where we discussed this. If it was very brief. We didn't know when it was going to take effect. Like I said earlier, we saw this on the Thursday agenda, and so that's why I went ahead and have it pulled. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Jacob.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Board, Jacob Pinero, Varner Brothers. If memory serves, we had a phase-in of the recycling surcharge over 3 years, but I don't remember that to be the end of the recycling surcharge. We phased that in because the markets were hurt immediately, but we wanted to gently raise the rate so the public didn't see as much of an increase on day one. That being said, Mr. Pope's SWAN report is accurate as of November of 2021. Things have changed and the material prices have come down since then. But what that report shows is just the revenue side of the operation. It doesn't show the cost side of the operation. And so what has happened in costs since China soared in 2018? Well, costs have gone up. Minimum wage has gone up. Diversion has gone down because China would accept a lot more. They'd have lenient standards on paper. So now we have to pull out more materials and send them to the landfill. So our diversion rate has gone down, our landfill rate has gone up. And what has happened to the landfill cost since then? The landfill cost, as you guys know, has gone up also from up to $58 a ton starting July 1st. So our group did not know about this potential change on the recycling surcharge until it was posted on the agenda for the board for Tuesday. So we would just like consideration to be able to review this with the department. So, and also we had our CPI, the CPI agreement that's conventionally voted on. Also, we're not being allowed a CPI, and we just like to talk about those things with us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pernero. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Couch.
Sorry, I should have punched in. That I think is a major problem, but it's part of the problem. And a problem that we have, the county has, I should say, is our communication with you all obviously hasn't been stellar. And because of that, we find ourselves where we're at today. So, and something I just learned literally right before the meeting started, and so I'm going to turn to Mr. Pope and have you explain this, and if you need county council to amplify it, or if your staff needs to jump in there, please do that. But what we're being asked to do today is to set a hearing date so that we can have a hearing about what these new rates would be. And what we do today has to go, the notice that we approved today essentially has to go to a printer that has to print all these notices up, that has to be mailed out to all the property owners or people that receive the service, right? And from what I'm told is, because in my mind I'm thinking, all right, what we can set, we can always adopt something lower than what we send out to the public, but we can't adopt anything higher. So I'm thinking, well, what could we change in our items today, in items 12 through 29, that could go to the printer that we could have a hearing on, and we could adopt something even lower than that? How could we give ourselves some wiggle room is what I was looking for. But then I was told that we cannot change anything that is on our reports here in items 12 through 29, because that has to go to the printer immediately. And we don't even have time to change that. If we wanted to change, if we wanted to go into the recycling surcharge, for example, in each of those reports and make it $20 or any number, and allow ourselves to come back and make it $5 or $0 or $2.57, anything under $20, we don't even have that latitude today, because so a printer somewhere is, as Supervisor Maggard said earlier, a printer is now running the county of Kern, apparently, at least on this issue. So is there a way that you can give us maximum flexibility? I'm looking to everybody here in moving forward today, because my initial reaction was, okay, well, let's kick this a week or two and allow the staff to meet with all the haulers, all the providers, and go over this in a professional way, which, again, should have been done earlier, but we'll take from where we are today. But I'm told that we don't even have that option available to us. So what can we do today that gives us maximum latitude going forward? This would come back to us in May, I've forgotten the date, 24th? That's what we're being asked to do today, is just to bring this item back for a hearing on May 24th. What can we do today that gives us the maximum latitude on May 24th, given that we've got a printer we need to satisfy somewhere?
Through the chair to Supervisor Couch, I'm a little bit at a loss on that because we are up against the wall. I mean, the changes we'd have to make are considerable, and it is unfortunate we're at this position. All I can say is we do need better communication, and that's something we'll have to work on, and we'll ask the haulers work with us on that goal. I think in the future we might be able to, and I'll look to council on this, is put a number in there that we would then adopt if there's still a need, and then when it comes to the hearing, we could actually make a determination of the value for that, some kind of CPI on recycling materials. I mean, I'm sure there's an index somewhere on it. That's something we can discuss.
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
We had a short discussion with one of my staff members, Sal Moretti, used to work for the city solid waste, and we asked him, and he suggested that there was a recycling index. Let me tell you why I'm asking about that. Why did the cost of recycling or the value of recyclable goods basically go to zero? Because China decided they didn't want it anymore. And now they've decided that they do. But I think if we don't have a way of helping this program out when there is no market for this stuff, even though it's being mandated by the state, and then turning that revenue stream off when there is a market for this and the cost is recoverable, we're using a very blunt instrument to deal with a smaller, more significant problem, I think. And just a 3-year fee, when the market can swing wildly during that 3-year period, I think we need to look for a better method of dealing with that. I don't know if I'm being clear enough or not. So the thinking caps need to be put on over there, not necessarily just today, but until you come up with a good way of dealing with that. But I appreciate Mr. Pope's thought on that, or his consideration that I think that would be a reasonable way to go through the 218 process. I don't know how you adopt something like that through 218, and I don't know what can be done today, given our reliance on this printer somewhere that has to have his stuff sent to him today. So I appreciate Mr. Pope's recommendation. Do you have any?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, I'm going to have Deputy County Counsel Phil Hall address that.
Thank you. Supervisor Couch, through the chair, there's a couple things going on here. So first, let's address the CPI. If there's a CPI that we can tag to a recyclable market and watch it go up and down and set a rate based on that and follow that, you absolutely can. It's really not difficult to do as far as adopting the notices and that. The only downside to that is you only can do that for 5 years before you have to redo the notices. So you can rely on that CPI increase. If it goes up, goes down, to change the rate, but only for 5 years. Then you have to redo it. Part of the difficulty we have...
Meaning we could readopt the same index 5 years from now?
Meaning you could say today we are following index, let's just say index A. And next year if index A shows an increase of 2%, we can increase the rate 2%, without having to go through the whole 218 process that we normally do.
Okay.
We send out notice to let people know that the rates are going up, and we pass an ordinance, but you do not have to do a 218 hearing because you're following a CPI increase, and there's a statute that allows you to do that for 5 years. So that we can do. On this one today, it's not just at this stage a printer, especially after what I've heard today. There's a couple things that we do in getting to here, and timeframes are very truncated because we're dealing with old agreements that frankly were drafted really before 218 was being followed, and with CPI increases included in them, it truncates everything down on our timeframes that we have to have for hearings, for ordinances to be passed, for them to become effective, which shrinks everything down. That's one thing that we deal with, which is why we come to this date, and today is kind of like the day you do everything, so we can get everything out to printers, get it in the mail, deal with the 45 days for the hearing. That's one aspect. The other problem we have with the recycling surcharge today, as currently written, is it was drafted with an engineer's report that says we're charging this for this reason. And the reason was the recycle market had changed and there was no value in the material. Today, what I've heard both before the hearing and now in the hearing from Mr. Panera is that the calculus has changed. In other words, the material might be more worth it, but the stuff that we got there as to why we still need a surcharge is a little bit different. And that requires a study through the engineer's report to tell the public why that has changed, how that has changed, so that they have that information when they are frankly voting on this fee. So we've got a problem there, not just a printer. We now need to do a different engineer's report, analyzing the situation and moving forward. As far as communication, we have a letter from July of last year where some of the haulers said 218s doesn't even apply to them. So when we see that type of stuff and we get 218 doesn't apply, it doesn't surprise me that we get to this situation where steps that we need to do for 218 aren't being covered because they're not thinking, oh, we need to change the calculus on how we get here, and then we would be doing the engineer's report and that to show those. So that's where we're at today. Moving forward on how we fix it, I can't really think of anything to fix the recycling surcharge today because of the engineer's report problem. And of course, the printer is equally a problem there. What you can do, though, is next year, there is nothing that says you can't charge the fee to cover what was missed in arrears. So assuming next year we can show through the engineering report that the fee should have been X today and we charged less than X, you can ask the public to agree to that and pay them in arrears for that missed time.
Who does the engineering report?
This department does with information provided by the haulers.
Okay.
So, and let me also stress here, that is the way 218 is really set up to work, is back a year. I mean, you always set rates generally as public, because generally this is all for public, and public is on both sides of it. We don't have an independent hauler that's then being paid. So it's always kind of designed to be a year behind. You set your rates, you find out you didn't get enough, you adjust, and you do a new 218 to get your back up. That's sort of the way 218 was set up. And it's kind of a trap for this situation because obviously private business doesn't want to be doing stuff at a loss for us for a year and then getting recouped on the backside. But without adjusting this with the CPI increase, I'm not sure what you can do. I think that answered all your questions.
Well, let me regurgitate that back to you.
Sure.
Briefly. We have no other choice other than to adopt what is before us today, or what will happen?
So two things happen. If you don't adopt anything today, the way our ordinances are written and the way that we've established our rates, we literally would have no rates for hauling trash on July 1.
So no one would pay?
Nobody would have it on their tax roll. Nobody would pay. There would be nothing.
But they wouldn't get it picked up either.
Exactly. Not a good situation. If you were to today try to reinstall the recycling surcharge and just say, all right, staff, add it back in, the problem we have is we've got, even in our engineer's report, evidence showing that it shouldn't be. So we would have exposure there because we've already established it shouldn't be in there. And by the way,
the engineer's report you're referring to is the SWANA report?
That's part of the engineer's report, is the SWANA report. So there's a whole report saying we've looked at this and figured this out. But
but as Mr. Pinero said, that's, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make sure, that shows the revenue side. Do we have anything that shows the expense side?
no, but that's part of my point. We established this rate, this current recycling surcharge, based on those materials being worthless at the time. In 2018, they had a value, and then all of a sudden they didn't have a value because China stopped buying them. And that was what that rate was based on. So when I'm saying we need to do 218 report, and that's some of what I had heard in the testimony up here, is because they're saying that the calculation is different. So we need to show that calculation differently in a new engineer's report. In other words, our justification for the recycling surcharge is no longer valid, both on this engineer's report and what we're hearing up here, because the cost calculations have changed.
We don't have, I thought you just said we don't have the cost side in our report. We only have the revenue side.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
That's why but the original engineer's report you're looking at looked at numbers that are no longer appropriate numbers, and they didn't look at others. We need the engineer report right now. So, and to answer then another question people might be thinking, we would need the engineer's report pretty much at this stage.
But to get that, you need information from the haulers, and we haven't had that communication.
Yes. That would be staff that drafts the engineering reports, but you've got to have those reports ready to go.
That hasn't been received or requested.
That's correct.
Neither one. Thank you. I'm going to sit back and listen to others for a minute. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pope, you are one of my favorite department heads. We've worked together for a long, long time. My job requires of me, however, to hold your feet to the fire as if you were not one of my favorite department heads. I don't think there's any excuse for us being at this date without this engineer's report being dictated by the timeline of some printer that we have to put something forward. There's no excuse for that happening today. Why did that not happen months ago? July was 8 months ago. Why did that not occur?
We could start our process for the 218 sooner. As it is, we started in January, and that's really what we're talking about. The timeline we're up against is the 218 process. We could have backed up into October, November, had discussions with the haulers. We were just based it on the report that was before us, and we should have expanded on that. I would agree with you.
I'm not accusing you of this, but there is a way. I'm going to explain to the public how something works, not the people in this room, the general public, if they happen to ever watch this. There's a way that staff sometimes dictates the way things conclude by teeing up the question that's before us in a way that there really is no other option except to accept what staff's recommendation is. That is not acceptable to me. It is not staff's job to do that. It is our job to do that. And that is being taken away from us, and I resent that. One of the reasons I resent it in this situation is there aren't just a handful of companies that do this. We're in a business partnership. We, the County of Kern, is in a business partnership with a handful of companies that provide services to tens of thousands of our constituents. Tens of thousands of people are affected twice a week when a garbage truck goes down their street in front of their house. Of all the services that are provided by the county, one of the services that I am least complained to about is trash hauling. They do it in a way that I am almost without exception not ever hearing from a constituent, they didn't pick up my stuff right. It is an impeccable level of service that we receive. Not only is this issue affecting the reliability of that service, but the issue as to whether or not we have an agreement to vote on with regard to the transfer, the sale of some of these franchises to a new party is also imperiled because that has taken too long. And I know that Mr. Hall just alluded to a moment ago that the agreement is old and out of date. Well, there have been plenty of times before today for us to deal with that agreement and for us to deal with this issue. So I cannot accept that we are dictated to by some printer's deadline that we must go forward and we can't give these increases. Now I have another question. Is it not the case, Mr. Pope, that Public Works recently raised the rates for the services that it provides?
That's correct.
How much did they go up by?
Do you know?
Well, from $105 for the universal collection to $160.
105 per year to 160 per year.
So $55. That's about a third, about a third increase, right? Actually, that would be about a 50% increase. It went from 100 roughly to 160. That's about a 50% increase. What was that based upon?
It was based upon the costs that we project out. It was all the different projects we need to comply with the laws for operating our facilities and our costs of doing that.
Did CPI play into that at all?
We didn't put a CPI in that.
Did you anticipate that the cost of providing those things would be greater?
No. We put our best guess of our costs into it at this time. And what we do is we just keep watching it every year, looking at it. And if we need to make changes, we'll talk to you again in the future. But right now, we think we're solid for the next 5 years or so.
Why would we not think that it's appropriate to adjust for an increasing operating cost in the private sector? Why would we not accommodate that when we accommodated an increasing cost at the public sector?
We did. There is a CPI in there for their operating cost. We base the zero cost on the blue cart recycling material based on the report and based on what we're seeing is that the market has recovered. That was our basis. They're operating. That is why we're carrying forward this 218 process to get them their CPI for their fuel, the cost of fuel going up and their cost of operating going up.
So you're saying that the CPI that was just referenced as not being included in this is not connected to their costs of operation and those costs going up? I'm not following the logic you're trying to give me as to why you would think that the private sector providing the service for the public is not entitled to an adjustment just like the county just gave itself.
That's correct. I mean, we are giving them a cost of living, a CPI as called out in their contract. That's in there. That's what these 218s are for. That's what we're bringing forward. We don't want to stop this process because it has those CPIs, those factors in there to raise their rates. That's what the hearing will be about, come May or whenever they're set up. We are moving forward on that because we do believe they're having increased costs. What we're taking out of that piece is this recycling surcharge. The amount of money that 3 years ago, we said, you know what? The world's on fire. There is no market for it. We're going to do something about it. That fire, as far as we could tell, has dampened out. We got a report from their national organization saying it doesn't a problem anymore. It's not a problem anymore. We agreed that their operating costs are going up. That's what we're bringing forward.
Mr. Pinero or Mr. Martin, didn't one of you just say that the CPI is not provided for in the hearing? Could one of you elaborate on that, please?
I got it. Yeah.
For the Zone 2 haulers, Valley Garbage, Howard's, Varner Brothers, Varner and Son, Lamont Sanitation, Superior Sanitation, Price, there's no CPI increase. And the total overall rates for us would go down if you take the recycling surcharge away. There are some other considerations for CPIs for some of the other haulers.
Thank you. Whether there's ambiguity in that, whether there is a misunderstanding of the two sides on that, again, it falls at our feet, in my opinion, that we have not had a discussion with them to work that out. And I am not of a mind to approve this, whatever the consequences are. So what's the worst thing that can happen if we don't do this today? And we apparently have to force us to sit down and be a good business partner with this private sector partner who helps us deliver this service. What happens if we don't do this?
I'll ask Mr. Hall to reply to that.
So let's, first I want to go back because there was some discussion about the dates. I want to make sure we understand what the dates. The July isn't the date that was important in the CPI. The CPI date is January because the current contract has a CPI formula in it that would kick off in January when you get the report and start being able to do everything. That's why we're truncated up, and in the middle of February, staff is doing basically nothing but putting together 21 different reports based on that CPI increase, and all of the documents go with it, which is 30 pages or more for each one of the 21 to get the CPI to this stage, to this date, and moving forward. Everybody had agreed that is too much of a truncated timeline a couple years ago. We were hoping in July to fix that in the new agreements. The new agreements have different timelines so that we wouldn't be in this, but we didn't get those done. And the new agreements also would have had increases under 1383 rates, which would have adjusted anything we had on the recycling surcharge. But we haven't gotten there because we haven't got the new agreements agreed to. So that's how we got here, and I want to make sure we understand the dates. The CPI is there. They also don't get it automatically. They need to request it. In this situation, I don't want to go too detailed into it, but in this situation, there may be reasons why Zone 2 didn't want to request that. I'm not going to say what those are or why they would have done it or whatever, but they come to us under the contract and say, we would like to get the CPI this year. Or they could say, you know, we would like to recover last year's CPI that we didn't get, which has also happened in the past. So that's the CPI part. What happens if we don't approve this today? Well, I hadn't even thought of that nightmare scenario to full depth, but I believe this is what would come out. You would have to, within the next 2 weeks, adopt a change to the Muni Code, allowing you to keep the current rates as they are through either a resolution or an ordinance. We could adopt an ordinance in a month, keeping the rates as they currently are. In other words, no increases as they are at the end of April. The other solution is you could do resolution, but that would change the Muni Code. The reason for that is the Muni Code says we set rates by ordinance. Ordinance needs 30 days before it becomes effective. So that means you have to do everything by June 1. The last Tuesday of May is always set aside for CSAC, so we're back to May 24th this year. Sometimes it's even earlier, and that's what you would have to do. There is no possible way of raising, given our current timeframes and the way the CPI works, the rates to get them on the tax roll in time. That's one of the things we are trying to do with these new agreements is to give the board that flexibility because we've never run into this. And it's one of the key parts of that new agreement that I've placed in there. But we are now just truncated on these 218 deadlines because of 45 days mailed notice, 30 days ordinance review, time to get stuff in front of the board. So that's really what it comes down to. You'd have exactly what it is now, but That'd be the only ordinance you could pass.
Ms. Rezon, Mr. Hall works for you. I just asked Mr. Hall, what's the worst thing that could happen if we don't adopt this today? And he gave us 5 minutes on ways, bureaucratic ways to work around it. He never said what was the worst thing that can happen. Ms. Rezon, what's going to happen if we don't approve this today?
Can I have just 1 moment, please?
You don't have rates.
I believe, as was mentioned earlier, there would be no rates on the tax rolls for for 22-23. And the haulers, there'd be no way to pay them, or the haulers wouldn't have to continue to provide services.
So
that's worst case.
How do you think we got, Ms. Rezon, how do you think we got in this position where today our only option is to deny these things and go forward, or else we could be in a position where we can't pay them?
It is my belief that in the last year, the parties have met frequently. I know that's not a belief, I know that they have met. I know that there have been ongoing negotiations.
When was the last time that occurred?
That they met?
Yeah, well, that they met specific to this issue so that we aren't in this position today.
Oh, I don't know, it was last week?
Depends which party we're speaking of.
I know there was a meeting last week with some of the haulers to discuss the ongoing. I think the negotiations have been combined with the changes to because of 1383, as well as then with some of the haulers' a new agreement. I apologize. There are so many moving pieces, and there are a lot of parts of it that have been combined, and there are multiple haulers that they have had different meetings with, but there have been ongoing discussions for months.
Let's try this from another angle. What if I want today to, I have no idea what my colleagues will say, and I'm sorry, colleagues, that I'm going on a bit, but this is really frustrating to me. What if I wanted to take it from another angle, and I want to arbitrarily say today, arbitrary is a bad word, that's a bad word, I'm not going to say that word. I want to make a decision today as to what that rate should be going forward. How do I justify continuing to pay these guys to pick up trash for tens of thousands of my constituents? How do I get that done and not be locked into staff putting me in a position that I must deny some of what they're requesting?
Could they do an urgent ordinance?
You need to give me an answer, how I can get around that.
Supervisor Maggard, I am not sure.
Well, that's not a good answer.
I'm aware of that.
Mr. Pope, what's a way I can get around that? Tell me how I can come to a fair price that I can pay these guys so it's not disrupted for tens of thousands of my constituents.
There is no disruption.
If I can't pay them, sir.
Oh, yes,
they can't
that'd be a horrible
trash.
disruption. So what, I mean, your goal is to what?
I want to not deny them. I want to at least leave in place what is a reasonable charge while we get done what we should have gotten done months ago and we have the negotiations with them.
And why do you think it's a reasonable charge?
I have no idea. Nobody's ever had the hearing in front of me.
That is the issue of the day. We based it on what we thought was a reasonable charge.
So my question to you.
So you're asking me.
My question to you was, how do I come up with a reasonable charge today?
We presented one. But you want to increase their rates based on nothing other than testimony that they want more money. We have no basis. There is no report to stand by. There is nothing. If you do that, you could. This board could elect to say we want a surcharge of $20. We have no way of defending that number.
And what happens then? What if we elect to give them a $20 to pick a number surcharge? And what happens then, Ms. Rezon?
It could expose the county to liability for collecting a fee that is not based in fact. And so anybody who is paying that fee could sue the county, saying that the county is collecting money that it doesn't have a justification to collect.
Okay.
That's the surcharge part.
Can I ask a question about that?
I don't want to forget my point. Just a second, okay? So let's tackle the printer issue. If Ms. Raison doesn't know today what the answer to that question is, and she needs some time to do that, why can't we just pick another printer who's not up against, doesn't need so much lead time? Can't we take it somewhere else to get it printed?
You would be amazed at how long it takes us to get a printer.
Well, I'm amazed how long it's taken us to get this. So
Me too.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Mr. Chairman, I'm sure I'll have more questions, but I don't know that I can do this.
Supervisor Couch.
Give me an estimate. I think what I heard Mr. Pope say earlier was he's got data that shows him there should be 0 in the way of a surcharge. The haulers say they've got data that says there should be something, because the surcharge should be something on the order of here's what we get out of it, here's what it costs us to get it there. The difference is profit, but or it may not be, or it may be a loss. So how long is that study that you referenced, how long would that take? Is that a week? Or is that something that you put together? Does that take a year? What does that take? Assuming everybody cooperates with you.
Through the chair to Supervisor Couch, it's something that could easily be done in a week. That's not a problem. Getting people to cooperate and show us finances is next to impossible. I mean, the group we've been working with, the haulers, are not willing to share a thing. Supervisor Maggard, you asked about the transaction for possible sale. That's still hung up on getting information. We asked for information and we got none. We've been working very hard to find another path that protects the public from having to pay for a huge transaction. That's our goal. I mean, we do everything we can to keep the county and the public here level. That's what we do. That's what we have brought before you. We are trying to produce something that is defendable and stands up to scrutiny by the public.
Mr. Couch, he said something to me. May I respond to that? Yep. Opinions vary about whether or not what the county has asked for about that sales agreement, if those requests are reasonable, whether or not the county is entitled to the information you've requested there. It's a stock purchase. It is companies being bought lock, stock, and barrel. There's a lot of difference of opinion about whether or not the county's entitled to that information. And I am on the razor's edge of dragging poor Mr. Alsop into this conversation. I'm going to try to avoid that. But it is easy to say what you just said, and I have great affection for you, Craig, but I absolutely do not agree with what you're saying. So I couldn't let that go without responding. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Couch.
Is a way forward this. In these multiple reports and agreements, is that if we don't move forward today, and if we don't have a hearing on May 24th, at least some of them will not get a CPI increase, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I know it's expensive to go through a whole nother 218 process just for the surcharge, but directing our staff to sit down with the haulers and come up with a rationale, a report, or whatever you want to call it, on what the surcharge is, if there should be one, or if there is one, what should it be? Could that be a separate 218 process? A month from now, 2 months from now, however long it takes you to go through this process, start this.
It can. And again, there's a lot of moving parts here. So let's just focus on what happens if we miss July 1. For those that do not have tax roll, where this is collected on the tax roll, and they bill it out, they could start billing that. The problem with that is if they're doing that then you have a disproportionate effect of the recycling surcharge across the county because others that are on the tax rolls not being collected. That's why it's in the rears. And that's why the July 1 deadline kicks in. But that's on the recycling surcharge. Now, if you're concerned about the CPI increase and the ones that didn't get CPI, that could potentially be changed today by you, but you need to have the haulers, A, requesting it. I believe Burtec would need to tell us too, given where it is in the sale, that Burtec would like that to go forward too. And we should have time to change those notices and get them to the printer, I would think, because it is just changing CPI and it's not an engineer's report that has to be written.
Are you telling me that Burtec would have to request that?
Here is why.
They're not a party to any of this.
No, they are though. Burtec is now, according to this county and the haulers, purchasing these franchise agreements. They are a third party that is active to those franchise agreements now. If we do anything to those franchise agreements with the current person who is selling it, it affects the commodity that is being sold. In other words, think of it this way. When you've sold your house and it's in escrow, or somebody has sold you a house in escrow, you don't want them messing with the house.
Right.
So Burtec needs to say, yes, we would also like that CPI increase, which is why I was saying earlier that it didn't necessarily surprise me that they weren't asking for a CPI this year, that they might ask for it next year as a roll-up with their 1383 rates. It wasn't, you know, a surprise that they said, let's hold off, let's wrap it all up, we'll catch it in arrears. And remember, again, the current contract requires that they ask us, and the current contract sets a time frame at January. If they're asking now, I'm sure Burtec could have say yes or no in the next 24 hours too, and we at a staff level can change the notice for that CPI increase and get it to the printers. But the recycling surcharge is a different issue because you've got an engineer's report saying you're buying one thing, and now we've got a recycling surcharge which is on something else, and we don't have an engineer's report for what the something else we're trying to buy is. To give you sort of an analogy.
So bifurcating or splitting those two in two is a doable thing. Sorry, Mr. Pinero, don't run away. I want to recognize, he stood up, so I want to ask the chairman if he would recognize him. Splitting those in two, going forward, what you've got, coming back with a surcharge, if there can be a reasonable one arrived to, is possible.
That's as I was saying earlier.
Supervisor Maggard asked, what can we do today? That's one option, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Today we can add a recycling we can add the CPI for those that didn't have it, assuming we get requests for it. But the engineer's report and the recycling surcharge really needs to be focused on next year. We can get it in arrears, in other words, get the backfill, but collecting it, that is a problem.
Well, I'm suggesting that you don't even wait until next year. I'm suggesting that our staff and the haulers go to work on that, and you bring that back whenever they're ready to go.
We brought the land use fee forward early this year and had time to work on it. It just can't go into effect for collection until July 1.
Got it. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to recognize Mr. Pinero. He got it there, I think, when we were talking about the CPI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For a point of order, our group did request the CPI increase, and we received a response from staff.
Wait a minute, Mr. Pinero, can you clarify that? You did request a CPI increase, and you received a response from staff, which was what?
That we wouldn't be up for consideration for it due to the sale.
Thank you.
Well, that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Supervisor Peters.
Thank you, Chairman. Just that's something we can come back to. That's a whole nother tangent. But just to prevent us from being in this position in the future, is there a way we could? I mean, there's a lot of people in this room that understand the ins and outs of the justifications of this rate and the contracts for waste hauling, and I'm not one of them. Is there a way that we could make an ordinance or a county policy or something to that effect to where we have to get these 218s before 45 days before the contract would be affected. Say we get it 90 days. So if these issues come up, we're not up against a deadline in the future.
Yes, and we had thought about that and considered it. The answer is an amendment to move the CPI to a different CPI, move the date forward in the current agreement to give us more leeway. But we didn't take that path because we were working on new agreements, which include that amendment inside the new agreement. So that's why we're here. If we'd had the new agreements done, we would be, you'd have seen this a month and a half earlier than today, because we moved everything back in the cycle. So if we never get a new agreement, we can amend the old agreement for this time frame so that this doesn't happen again. This has been something I've been afraid of for 7 years.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody else punched in, so I'm going to ask a couple questions. So in my mind, it looks like I'm seeing two potential pathways today, and perhaps there's another nuance to one of them. First would be moving forward with what staff has recommended without a recycling surcharge, coming back and with a study that looks at the cost side to sorting the recyclables, not just the market rates, which seems like that's what's been contemplated in the decision not to have a recycling surcharge go forward. Would that be correct, Mr. Pope? The market rates now for the materials, in your mind, your staff's mind, indicates that you didn't need to continue the recycling surcharge.
That's what we've proposed, yes.
And what we're hearing from the haulers, thank you, and what we're hearing from the haulers is, well, you're not looking at the cost side for us. We don't, Mr. Martin, I believe, said that they don't sort their recyclables anymore, or don't process, rather, their recyclables anymore. Probably when the market crashed, you no longer did that. He's nodding his head, so that's the case. It makes it more difficult to pull materials out now. If you do take it to a processing center, they want it in a certain condition with certain materials already having been extracted, and so the costs go up for them to get that material to the marketplace or to the processors who then send it to the marketplace. So the first option would be move forward, come back with a new study that looks at the cost side for the haulers to process the materials, and then approve a recycling surcharge if the engineering studies indicate that they are valid, that they're needed.
That's a proposal we could look at. I will remind your board that their agreement, it flat out states that the material in the blue cart is theirs whether they're making money or not. We went out of our way to give them a 3-year surcharge because the world was on fire, saying there is no money in it. We are at a different point. We can look at their cost and see how badly they're being hurt by this process. If you wish, we could bring that back in a report and then let you guys make a decision.
But when that report comes back, we still would not be able to approve anything before July 1, a rate to go in place because of how 218 works. Mr. Hall, is that right?
Whether or not you could approve it is the issue. The issue is whether or not you can collect it, and you can't. You'd have to wait till next year's July 1 because it goes on the tax roll.
Thank you for that clarification. I was kind of saying the same thing, but I appreciate the clarification. So they would basically then we would have to have a true up, so to speak, a reimbursement for costs that they had occurred this year in the next July 1. So that's one option. The other option would be for us to not approve these, change our ordinance to allow somehow, you were explaining, for the current rates to just remain in place.
Yes. The only option at this stage, the worst case scenario is you don't have any rates, you don't have anybody paying to haul their trash, and I guess general fund starts somehow figuring out how we're going to get trash hauled. So that's the one side. Aside from that,
not going there.
Yeah, aside from that, so the real worst case is we maybe change the ordinance to allow us to do a resolution, which would give you another month to agree at the current rates, or by May 24th, you adopt an ordinance that keeps the rates as they are now. They couldn't change them, couldn't raise them, It could lower them, but it couldn't raise them, and that you'd have to adopt on May 24th, and you could do that with an ordinance, or change it and get an extra
And no
month.
218 process there.
No 218, because the rate is staying the exact same.
Okay. And there was some discussion about us being able to increase the CPIs in some of these contracts, but we have had some that have not requested. Burtech, for instance, has not requested it. I don't think I'm comfortable in arbitrarily, I'll use the word, Supervisor Maggard, increasing CPI on some of these when they haven't been requested. And so, are there any other pathways besides those two today?
No, that's it. I mean, Burtech, we could have the current haulers that are in the sale with Burtech ask today for CPI to be increased. Board could direct staff if we get agreement from Burtech in the next, today, 24 hours, to, if at all possible, process those documents and get them to the printer. I think we would be able to meet the printing deadline then. I'm not a printer, but if you could get the printer deadline, us changing the notice so that they can get just the CPI is not a huge task.
Okay, because the engineering study, it would cover that. The engineering study, the problem is the recycling surcharge, not the CPI.
Yeah, to put it another way, when you do CPI, you specifically do not need an engineering study, because the statute says if you're following CPI, it's something that we don't control, and therefore you can do it for 5 years.
Okay. So that's door A and door B. Mr. Martin?
Jeff Martin, American Refuse. Clearly, I only represent American Refuse. I'm not representing a group of haul or anything. But in the 3 items that I had originally said that were coming up, is only one of them is universal collection area. Only one of them goes on the tax roll. The rest of them, the haulers bill directly to the customers. So I don't feel like we're completely subject to every aspect that we're working through here on this Prop 218 issue. The other thing is, last year we were faced with a 7% increase, despite COVID and everything else that we were dealing with. This year with the price of fuel, it's who knows where it's going to top out at. As we're ordering equipment and vehicles now, most of our vendors are telling us, we can't give you a price. We don't know where it's going to be at. We can't commit to it. We can't commit to the time. We can't commit to the price. And that's how we're having to operate now. It's like, ordering a car and you don't know if it's going to cost you $100,000 or $500,000 or whatever. And it's really a terrible place to be. For us to come back with these challenges, losing the fee of the recycling surcharge, the recycling surcharge is more to us of a value than actually the 5% increase that we're up for. So I understand that staff is saying that there's no way that even if you don't approve it, it's not going to go back to the other way it was. But I don't know, we need some type of relief. We can't just accept what we're getting. And this is really the perfect storm that shouldn't be happening.
But you and I think are understanding this the same way from what staff is saying, is there is no way to address the recycling surcharge until July 1 of next year. You basically have to be made whole if the engineering study indicated that the recycling surcharge was justified because of the cost side.
Yeah, I don't believe that's true when it comes to direct billed customers. Like if a commercial customer, which makes up about 85% of our business that we're direct billing ourselves, that doesn't go through the county. Once the county approves the rate through the Prop 218, then it becomes effective the next day. We don't have to wait because it's not billed on the taxes. We bill the customer directly, which is 85% of our customer base.
And that's in your specific case?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and staff have any comment on that?
Yeah, I tried to address this earlier, and I'll readdress it because he is right. He's able to bill directly, and the tax roll isn't a holdup because the tax roll is not what he's got to deal with. The problem is there is a proportionality test in 218, and if half of the county is paying a recycling surcharge while others aren't, then we're not following the proportionality requirement of 218 where some aren't paying for it and some are. That's the double-edged sword there.
So he would be fine, but we could be potentially legally imperiled. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Just let him finish and then.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we don't want to make too much sausage here right now, but if we were changing say you change the rates. I know. We're way past that. Let's say, as we were saying earlier, we're going to move forward with the 218 next month. And next month's 218, and we get the thing done 4 months from now, says that we're putting a new recycle surcharge out there, and it's $15 a month. For those that it goes on the tax roll, they could pay more in 1 year, more in 2 years to catch up to the person who's collecting it off the tax roll. And Mr. Martin's company could be allowed to pay to recoup that immediately from those it bills directly, but that's way into the, that's way into making sausage and how we could get there. But that's one way to take care of the proportionality requirement, which is caused by having this on the tax roll for some and not for everybody.
You're good. Mr. Martin, did you have anything else?
Proportionally, our universal collection area customers we charge them less than we do with our direct billing because the county's billing them on their taxes and we don't have that cost. So they're already off. So I don't think that that's a factor. I think commercial customers that we bill, roll-off customers that we bill, customers that we're dealing with on a subscription basis, you're not going to see a difference in there. It's purely just the universal collection customers that we have to deal with. That will be a change, and there is already a change before we even start this. There is a difference, so I don't feel like that applies. I don't think it's true.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pernero. Do you have anything to add as far as these two potential pathways for us?
I think the only thing I would mention is we've done increases before that weren't effective July 1st. We did a hauler fuel component increase in 2008. We did multifamily changes in 2016 or so. That weren't, I believe those were August 1st changes. And our legal group believes that if it's direct billed to the customer and it's subscription service, it's not a universal service. And I think almost every single jurisdiction in California would agree that that's not a Prop 218 issue because it's subscription-based service, like a roll-off customer or front-loader customer. This is non-universal. That's all.
Thank you. Does council have anything? Any comment on that? No? You agree with that?
Well, the deadlines for when you put it on the tax roll are set by people that are other than me in the county. So they can respond to that and whether or not we've put it on the tax roll at other times. In my experience, we've always been told you have to have things done and into the county by August 10th. Some statutes even say that, so you can get it on the tax roll. We have rate structure with an ordinance that says July 1 of every year the new ordinance has to be in. So that's the problem with the tax roll. And that's the subscription service. It's not a subscription service to the point that they don't have to have the service. It's how much service they have that's a subscription. And agreed that under 218, you have a baseline that you must have for health and safety. And if you want more service, you can pay for more service, and that wouldn't be subject to 218, which is why not all of the rates that we adopt are subject to 218 when it comes to trash hauling.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Couch.
I want to ask if there's a third option.
Sure.
Adopting something today that would set a hearing for the 24th of May that would allow for CPI increases, which have been requested, and including a recycling surcharge, knowing full well we would not adopt that amount because the amount that was being charged was based on value received, which was virtually nothing. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, before the 24th, a study would be done that would bring back a value, if there is one, for a recycling surcharge to be considered on May 24th, which would most certainly be less than what we would advertise. So we would have the ability to adopt something less than what we advertise, but not more.
I will agree and say that logically we should be able to do that. Unfortunately, we have to provide a 45-day notice period, which would include somebody the ability to look at the engineer's report that you would be drafting then inside that 45-day period. And that's why it's problematic. It makes all the sense in the world, but I didn't draft 218. So.
But that's, we're just under 60 days. May 24th, we're the 29th, we're 55 days-ish.
Yeah, something like that.
So you're saying that report would have to be ready in 9 to 10 days and publicly available?
You got to work back from the printer, getting it out and mailed, folded and everything.
The report doesn't have to go out.
But the notice is going to tell you what's in the report. So the notice that's being wrapped, mailed, and stamped has to talk about the report and set a number based on the report.
Mr. Chairman, Phil, does the report that's sent out to the public, as long as I think what Supervisor Couch is referring to is that if there's a number that's bigger than what the report ultimately says, and if we get that done in the next 5 to 10 days, and when we came back to adopt what it was adopted what was in the report, would that be defendable?
So the concept here is to send out, if I understand the question is, do we send out a notice that says we want to adopt a recycling surcharge at $10? Come look at the report. The problem is that we don't have a report when we send out that notice justifying the $10. And that's way off the chart as far as anything that I've ever considered anybody trying under 218, and I don't think you can do it. I mean, you would have an engineer's report for them to look at during their 45 days, but the notice isn't really putting out there what's in that engineer's report. So it would be an exposure that I would not suggest.
Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you. So let's get to the bottom of this. Who requested and who did not request? Mr. Pinero, I believe, just said that he requested a CPI increase. Mr. Pope, I think he said that you did not grant him the request in this, what is proposed before us. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the reason being is through this transition of entity wanting to buy up smart franchises, all we can fall back on is the experience of one we just did. And through the WMI bin sale, that exact thing happened, and we put it on hold. All transactions, all changes, we put it on hold until we got through it. That's the same approach we did here. The stuff we asked for, this board demanded that we get. So we asked for it again. That's not forthcoming. We're looking for other avenues to try and accomplish this. That's where we're at.
Without delving into the details of that transaction, this transaction is vastly different than was that. The underlying confidence we had in the records, it was a whole different scenario, in my opinion. So Mr. Pinero said he requested it. It was Mr. Pope's decision not to grant it. Since he requested it, Margot, Ms. Raison, can it be included today here?
Yes, it could. We would ask that, for the reasons that Mr. Hall explained sooner before it's actually finalized, that Burtech be joined in and agree to that.
Okay, and let's deal with that for a second. You would ask for that. Mr. Hall said he would be more comfortable with that. Is there some bright line in the law that says that is necessary? Or why must we include somebody who's not at the table yet. The agreement is a whole different issue, but the agreement with the buyer of these franchises could have already been settled, but it is not settled. And I don't know who all is responsible for that, but 100% of that responsibility is not with someone else. Some of that responsibility is with the county. So I want to remove that issue on the table. Can I do that? Can I proceed without agreement to a request from the buyer?
You can, but there is some risk associated with that because what the Burtec Group could then decide to do, say they disagree or they think that we have somehow interfered with their ability to move forward with finalizing their agreement or tweaking the terms of it somehow, they could come after the county.
Now, I'm not privy to all the discussions that have happened there, and I am way deeper in this than I ever wanted to be. But here I sit in the dilemma with everybody else. I do not want to do anything to jeopardize a private citizen's ability to conduct business and to do it in a way that serves their interests best and serves me as a steward of the public's trust the best. So I don't want to jeopardize that here. If we go forward without consulting them, are we imperiling the ability for that deal to be finished? Because if we are, it jeopardizes hundreds and hundreds of jobs. It jeopardizes tens of thousands of people's service. I do not want to jeopardize that. So do you think it brings any jeopardy into that or not?
I cannot speak on behalf of Burtec. I'd like to think that it would not, but I cannot represent them. I'd be happy to, if the board wanted to take a recess, I'm sure we could make some phone calls. Or send
I think that's an interesting question for us to contend with.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, I can remember.
Have they been informed of everything that we're doing today? And have they agreed to all of it?
I haven't. I'm assuming I wouldn't be able to answer that.
I have an email from Mark Empey, Burtec's attorney, where he acknowledges that the CPI increase was not going forward this year. And he hasn't said he wanted it.
And we're actually debating that he would be upset if they didn't receive that.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Here, I'll lay it out there. So first, the argument would be you were tortiously interfering with their sale if they didn't want this information out there, or it became a negative to them. And if you were as I was saying, if you're purchasing this entity and you know your rates are already going to go up on 1383, then you're asking for CPI increase on top of it. Public might be concerned about the purchase. So you might hold back and say, we will catch that next year and wrap it all up. But we can't represent that. I mean, if they want to add, it seems like if they're okay with the CPI, then they'll say yes and we can add it. But we should not assume that they are. And there is a definite legal risk, especially if the sale went sideways at some point, for whatever reason, not even if the county is going sideways, that you could be looking at a tortious interference claim.
Can I step back in then? Thank you for that. I think it might be prudent of us, I think it would be prudent of us to pause for 10 minutes and let's let our staff determine that. While they're determining that, I would ask, you have 25 attorneys or something working for you, Ms. Razan, have somebody else look, please, at whether or not we can separate in this notice that we're going to give that those who are direct bill customers of these businesses can proceed with the adjustments that they desire to do, independent of whether or not they have to follow these 218 rules. I don't think everybody should be lumped into one big category if they have a different operation. So, Mr. Chairman, I realize this has taken a while, but it is not our fault that we are making sausage, so to speak, in front of the public, because this is been left in our lap, I think, in a very unfortunate way. So I would urge us to pause for a few minutes and allow staff to make those inquiries.
Supervisor Maggard, I've been sitting here for about the last hour thinking about taking a break for staff to be able to discuss it. So I do agree with that. However, we do have items 51 and 52 that are off consent under the General Services Department. I'd like to ask staff if they think that we can move forward on those. I know council needs to be a part of this conversation with Public Works, but it seems to me that we should be able to handle these items with General Services. I don't know if we need to get an attorney down here that can sit in. Ms. Raison, what are your thoughts on us handling items 51 and 52?
I think we can proceed. Mr. Van Wyk is familiar with those.
Great. And
he is in the audience.
Perfect.
Good
okay,
answer.
good. Well, just for the sake of trying to get through this meeting, as fun as this has been, let's try to do 51 and 52. So we'll pause on items 12 through 29, and then we're going to move on to 51 and 52, and then we'll come back. Okay. Mr. Hill, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Item 51, we'll take that one first, is a request to accept the successful bid of $140,000 from Wonderful Lost Hills Development, LLC, for the sale of property tax in for the sale of property in Lost Hills. We pulled this item off consent to provide a brief explanation of the changes required to comply with the new Surplus Lands Act. Due to changes in state law, the Department of Housing and Community Development must approve before we can finalize this transaction. We're asking that the words upon HCD approval be added to the end of staff recommendation. Therefore, the new recommended action is that your board, 1, make the finding the project is exempt from further CEQA review under 15.312 of the state CEQA guidelines. 2, accept the successful bid amount of $140,000. 3, approve the revised quitclaim deed. 4, authorize the chairman to sign the quitclaim deed. And 5, direct General Services to record upon Department of Housing and Community Development approval. That's the end of my end of the required changes for this item.
Thank you. Do any members of the public have any comments on item 51? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. And now on to item number 52. Mr. Hill, please proceed.
52 is to request to accept the successful bid of $271,000 from Jose Dolores Rivera for the sale of property at 1116 East California. For the similar reasons of adding the language at the end of the recommendation, I'll read the recommendation. Therefore, the new recommended action is that your board, 1, make the finding the project is exempt from further CEQA review under section 15.312 of the state CEQA guidelines. 2, accept the successful bid of $271,000. 3, approve the revised quitclaim deed. 4, authorize the chairman to sign the quitclaim deed. And 5, direct General Services to record upon California Department of Housing and Community Development approval. It's the end of the revised changes.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. Just kidding. We're going to take a 10-minute break. May I have a motion? Okay, we're going to adjourn for 10 minutes. Okay, board to reconvene from our recess. The roll call remains the same. And I'm not sure who I'm going to turn to at this point. Am I turning to council or to Mr. Okay, council. Mr. Izan.
Chairman Scrivener, board members, I'm going to try to explain what we've come up with as a plan, and certainly Mr. Pope and anybody else can correct me. But first, during the recess, we did hear from Tracy Sweeney, who is the Vice President and COO of Vertec, and there's no objection to the inclusion of of CPI increases for the Zone 2 haulers. The CAO staff, Ms. Martinez, Mr. Zervis, have contacted the auditor's office, and working with the auditors and the tax roll, there is some word we've used as wiggle room regarding the July 1st deadline. So that frees up some additional time for us to meet with the haulers and recraft some of the documents and still allow time to get to the printers and mailed to the public within the 45-day requirement. What we are proposing is that we will continue to meet with the haulers, and we will discuss the topic of the recycling surcharge. However, this will require an expedited exchange of information, and it's a two-way street between the county and the haulers, and the need to have information. We will also pursue making a change to the Muni Code, which will allow your board to adopt rates after July 1st this year. And all of these matters will be brought back before your board for further consideration in late April. And so at this time, I believe Mr. Pope is asking that all of these agenda items be withdrawn from today's agenda, and we will revisit it on another day.
Okay, withdrawn, not continue to a date certain, correct?
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn.
Okay, so items 12 through 29 withdrawn. Okay, any comments from the board? Okay.
I have one comment.
Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we talk with the service provider and the county, have this conversation about the recycling surcharge, I want to make sure that we are addressing both the revenue side and the cost side, because it's dynamic on both ends. So with that request, I'm good with that. Thank you.
A question for Supervisor Maggard. We're going to work with them on trying to see if we can come up with a surcharge that tries to what? What is your goal there? You know, how much dollar amount are we looking to try and provide them?
I would never presuppose to tell you what you should do. You should follow the process, and the process will come out on the other end with what's appropriate, I think. I'm going to expect to hear from both sides as to what the recommendation is appropriate or they think it's not. And then I like to have, of course, the leeway to decide for myself, my colleagues can as well, as to whether or not they think it's appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, before we adjourn, I'll ask if there's any members of the public that would like to make any comment. Okay, seeing none then. All right, seeing no further business, with items 12 through 29 being withdrawn, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, April 5th at 9 a.m.
Motion.
We are adjourned.